All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
To another episode of the Reignite Resilience podcast. I am your co-host, Natalie Davis, and so excited to be back with all of you today. And joining me, of course, is your co-host, Pam Cass. Hello, Pam. How are you?
I am fantastic. It is Thursday. We're almost through this week.
Exactly. It is. And it's a short week with a holiday at the end, and it is officially summer. And I feel like everything is just a whirlwind. So
it is rolling really, really fast, and I'm just trying to hang on.
Exactly. Well, I love that. I love this time of year. I'm just happy that my voice is back. I have been talking quite a bit over the last week, so I got a little bit of a hint of a raspy something another. I'm not trying it. It just happened. So you're welcome to our listeners. If you hear that raspiness come out, you're welcome.
We know what it is.
Anyway. Today, we have a wonderful guest that is joining us, Pam. So I will turn it over to you to let our listeners know who's joining us today.
Yes, absolutely. So today we have Chris Woods. He is a certified professional coach, author of Balls and Brains, and a former 4-time global C-suite executive and Google sales leader. Through his book and coaching, Chris helps people overcome fear, maximize their strengths, and stop playing small. Raised in a tough Boston neighborhood, Chris's journey took a dramatic turn when he flatlined in the hospital bed at the age of 40, an experience that forced him to redefine success and confront the fears driving his life and career. Today, Chris combines real-world leadership experience with powerful personal insights to help leaders and professionals align who they are with what they do, so success feels energizing instead of exhausting. Welcome, Chris. It is wonderful to have you with us. And I kind of want to just go to, how'd you come up with the name Balls and Brains for your book? Because I love that. And it's one I will never forget. Right. And so I'd love to hear that story first, and then we'll rewind.
All right. So my work background is always been in sales and marketing. My MBA is in marketing. So when I was going to do a book, I was like, it needs to be an attention grabber, right? In this day and age of short attention spans, what's something that's going to stop the scroll and at least give people to give me the permission to give them another 10 seconds to explain, what the heck it is. So it's really around the 2 steps that I've been using in my coaching practice for quite some time here, which is to help people identify the fears that hold them back from going all in on being themselves. And then the brains part of it is not about being smart in school. It's about actually having an awareness about what you're really, really good at, what your strengths are, and so that you can actually go full in on those as well.
Oh, I love that.
That's awesome. In a nutshell, that's great in terms of marketing, right? Like you have to have that marketing brain. You're like, we can narrow this down to 2 words. It will be great.
And it worked. I mean, I will never forget the name of that book. So
exactly.
All right. Well, take us back to the rough Boston neighborhood that you lived in, because I'm assuming a lot of what happened back then kind of has led you to where you are today.
For sure. So I'm the youngest of 5. Grew up near Tufts University in Boston. So it was a tough blue collar area in the 70s and 80s when I grew up. So youngest of 5, my dad died when I was 2. My mom went to wake him up and he had died in the bed at 40 years old. So she hadn't worked and didn't have a driver's license. So had to get a driver's license and get a job. So she ended up becoming a motel house cleaning person, and then just worked in real tough areas. So I learned early on about resilience, and that no one really wanted to hear you complain. Just get the job done and do your best.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you carry that on as you were going through life, through school and entering in as a young adult into the workforce, things of that nature?
For sure. So I ended up having to put myself through undergrad and then came out with a ton of loans and was just like, all right, I'm going to do whatever it takes to pay the loans off and to be a success. And frankly, one of the things that was always in my head was, as I had mentioned, my dad died. He was 40. And I, for whatever reason, had it embedded in my head. No one told me this, but I felt like I was going to go early too. So I always felt like there was a clock ticking for me coming up on 40. So I always told people that I didn't feel like I was necessarily trying to build a resume, but I was looking to build an obituary, which is kind of morbid to say it out loud. But it fueled me, like I don't think anything else could have.
Yeah. Fueled you to probably work and work and work and work and work.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Which probably
Absolutely.
led to potentially that flat line at the age of 40.
Yeah, I think so. I think it was a combination of it. What actually was the trigger for it was I got cardiac Lyme disease. So it's an awful form of Lyme disease where you get bitten by a tick and it attacks your heart. So I was in the hospital and then I had what they called a sinister vasovagal, where instead of sometimes your blood pressure drops, my heart just stopped. But fortunately, I was surrounded by the best doctors in the world, and they called the code blue and brought me back, with the paddles, and ended up keeping me in the hospital for a few weeks and ran a bunch of tests, and ended up installing a pacemaker in my chest and eradicating the cardiac Lyme disease after a few months. But then as a result of that, they said, Mr. Woods, you probably have another 40 or 50 years to live now. And so it ended up opening up the question, what am I going to do with another 40 or 50 years?
Now what? Exactly.
You've done it 40 and not have to worry about that.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's truly like in a spot where you could look at that and think, okay, well, now what am I supposed to do? Right. Like I strive to really knock out as much as I could before the age of 40 because I quote unquote knew this was coming. And now here you are on the other side of it.
Yeah.
What does that look like? Does it give you a clean slate that is invigorating, or does it give you anxiety?
The clean slate. And so that's what ended up kicking off the whole kind of introspection that I had never done before, and made me realize that I was just always running on fear, like essentially 100% fear. And that's what's then led me to what I now do in coaching about helping people, particularly men who don't want to talk about things that they're afraid of, is an idea that I can kind of lead by example on that and say, listen, I'm not telling you need to lay down on the therapy couch, or this is going to make you weaker by admitting that you've got some sort of kind of concerns. But really think about how much better you can be if you have some awareness around these things and you're choosing to run off of faith, off of strengths, as opposed to fears.
Wow. What are some of the most common fears that men have that you work with?
So failure, first and foremost, embarrassment, public humiliation, disappointing the family, friends. Some of them it's underachieving. Some of them then once they've reached success is losing it, because then once, it was one thing where they didn't have as much to lose, but now when they actually do, they feel like the stakes are higher. And that oftentimes causes not only, stress and anxiety, but for them to play smaller than they are capable of, because they're coming from a point of concern about loss as opposed to gain.
Yeah. Wow.
Christopher, when you're talking to these clients that you're working with and exploring all the different types of fear that pops up, or how fear pops up in their lives, when you go back and look at the introspective work that you did for yourself, the fear, did it only surround that clock of, turning 40, or were there other things that popped up for you as well that you were able to recognize?
For me, it was mostly around the clock. And, I was concerned about, underachieving. I was also it felt really awful to feel like I was going to leave my kids early, the way that my dad had left me and my kids. And so it was always like a very morbid thing when I was spending great time with my kids. I would sometimes feel like, wow, they're really going to miss me. And it was, I didn't know any other way to live. So then once I got the second chance and I got some time to, with therapy as well as looking into it, I was like, oh, I don't actually have to think like this. And this doesn't have to be the way that I have to do this.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did new fears arise once you did get to the other side of the flatlining?
Well, once I started to then get in touch with the things that I was good at and what I really wanted to do, the only fears that I really had on that was like, what's that going to look like? Because much the same as then when people achieve a lot of success, they're like, what if I give this up? You know, what if I take a risk and it doesn't work? So that was the concerns that I had to then work on for a little bit, but I eventually got there. Guys, can I ask you to pause 1 second? Because my dog is giving me a hard time and I'll be right with you. Hold on 1 second.
Yes. I'm going to mark there.
It's funny because I thought that was my dog, and I was like, "Why is he?"
Oh, you did? I couldn't hear it. Okay, I couldn't even hear it, and I can't. Yeah,
that's not like Oakley. Like, what's going on?
it's.
What's happening?
Sorry about that. So yeah, so
no,
she was in the other room and she heard me talking and she was whining. I think she thought there were people in here.
Okay, and she's missing out. Yes,
yeah, she's missing out. I need to let her know that she's not. So just in case she makes any kind of other noise, I'm going to put these headphones in.
Okay.
And I'm going to, let's see. I'm going to do this.
How's that sound?
Still sounds good.
Great. Awesome. And again, apologies for that. This is the first time she's ever done that. So I apologize.
That's right. We have
that. No worries.
We have the voice that attracts dogs, apparently.
Exactly. Okay, so right. Go right ahead. I think you were talking to us about the fear that was popping up and after post flatlining and what that looks like.
Yeah, and so then it ended up just then becoming any fears that would hold me back from just, as I say, letting it rip. And it was like, what do I have now to lose? So what I then ended up doing, it ended up being an evolution. It wasn't like after it happened, I flipped a switch and completely blew up my life. It was something that I, kind of started mapping an evolution towards what I ended up doing afterwards. And that becomes a recurring theme in the things that I now talk to my clients about, is that I don't want them to think about what we're going to do is this as a revolution, because revolution is scary, it's disruptive, it's messy, and oftentimes it doesn't work. And so what I try to then talk to people, particularly high achievers like me and other ones that I know, they sometimes tend to catastrophize. And they're like, oh my gosh, if I do any of this, everything's going to get ruined, or I'm going to blow everything up, or I'm going to change everything. And I'm like, we don't have to do that. I'm not saying that this is a complete teardown. I'm just saying, let's identify where you are, where you can go, and then the steps to get there. And that's what a coach can help with. And that's what the work that we do together can do. And so that ends up becoming part of what I try to reinforce with people, is that I want this to be paced. I want it to be an evolution, because evolution's natural.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Chris, when you look at the fear, that's kind of the lag measure, right? Like the fear is coming from something else. So you're working with your clients to uncover what is causing this. Is that correct?
For sure. So yeah. You guys may have even heard this quote from Peter Crone. A British kind of like life coach and spiritual guy. He's amazing. And the way he phrases this, I just think it's a magical question. And he asks, who would you be in the absence of your concerns? Mm-hmm. And I just love, it's very British the way he phrases it, right?
Yes,
but it's
exactly.
also just, I feel like it opens up a part of your brain, and I think even in your soul, that says, wow, this is the part, well, if I didn't have these concerns, I would feel this way, I would do this, this is how my life would look. And then you can compare that to what it currently does. So what I always encourage people who haven't done that exercise before is to do it the first time and stream of consciousness, write down the answer, and then do it again the second day and do it again the third day, kind of an iterative process, and see if additional things come out. And then when you look at that, that can be a bit of a North Star. It's like, that's who your soul is telling you you are capable of being without these concerns that are holding you back. And we use that then as a step off point, is like, okay, so how close to that person can we get you?
I just recently heard that question just a few weeks ago. And when I heard it, it's one of those questions that stops you in your tracks. Right. You're like, well, shoot, I've never allowed myself to even go there. I don't know.
Exactly. And I love the way he phrases it, because you've heard before, what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? But that just doesn't trigger the same way. It's like a magical sequence of words that he uses.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
When you're able to uncover this with your clients, what does that next step look like, right? Because now we've gone through the process of understanding what's holding us back and identifying like who we'd ideally like to be. How do you get from here to there? What does that
So
look like?
I have them take the Enneagram, if you guys
Okay.
are familiar with that, right?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
So that ends up then giving you out, like oftentimes that first thing is kind of creative and it's magical writing from the soul. And then the Enneagram gives you, some feedback that's more kind of data driven based upon real responses and maps these things out. So it says, what your biggest driver is and like what your biggest fear is and what your biggest needs are, right? And so that ends up then becoming more of digging in on the question. Is that what is this? Does this resonate with you? This type of person, this also is how fear shows up for you, right? So when fear shows up and it's a negative way, this is what you tend to be. But also when you're in times of growth, this is the way that you respond. So it's like then using that to double click on their thoughts and their responses to make sure that they are now then getting in tune with the fears they have, as well as the nature of their personality and the stuff that they need to be happy and to succeed. And then we use that as the first step to be like, all right, so how is that compared to what you currently are doing? So that's how we address the fears part of it.
Okay. And what made you bring the Enneagram into this? Like how did you get introduced to it? And
so I had taken one a few years ago and just found it to be super impactful. And this is going to tie in the other part of it. So the brains part of the book, right? Balls and brains. The brains part of it is about getting a real handle on what you're really good at. And so I have them take the Clifton Strength Finders.
Okay.
And so I was originally introduced to that post flatline. So I was working for Google at the time, went back. I had an executive coach at Google that once you reach a certain level within the organization, they give you an executive coach. So when I worked with her, a year or so after returning from my flatline, she had me take the Clifton's Strength Finder because I was talking about what I wanted to do next. When I had gotten into Google, it was still earlier stages and it was still kind of entrepreneurial and you could do a lot of things. And then several years into it, it really blew up. It was massive. It was scaling. And so as you grew within the organization, you got kind of like put into very specific roles, right? And so the Clifton Strength Finders came back with a lot of things, my top 5. And 3 of the top 5 within them told me that I should be in either entrepreneurial or turnaround type environments, which was not what, these things, right? And so that's what I eventually ended up doing. So that ended up being so impactful for me that when I started talking to people about fears, I was like, I could actually use the Enneagram as the step off for that. So when we do the balls and brains part of it, and when we talk about the book, it's founded in the 2 Enneagram and the Clifton Strength Finders, just so that we've got some real data to go on as opposed to it all just being theoretical.
Oh, that's incredible.
That is, absolutely. And to have the opportunity to be introduced to it when you're with a major corporation to find out this is not where I belong.
For sure. But it was great. It was also this evolution thing. It wasn't like, I looked at it and I was like, okay, see you later. I'm out of here. And it ended up then I started mapping my way out. And it was 2 years later that I left to go, start my own CEO consulting business. So again, it's the evolution part of it as opposed to revolution.
Okay. So you walked away from that to do CEO consultations. So
so I originally started a CEO consulting business and then got hired by investors who had companies that they were, various investors in, that they needed people to come in and turn around because the sales weren't growing or they needed to break even or whatever. So I loved that when I got a chance to go do that. So I did that 4 times. And as I was doing it and feeling so great and in the thrill of it, I was like, this is exactly what the Clifton Strength Finder said.
Yeah, you're like, my Strength Finders told me this. I am. And
this stuff knows what it's talking about.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That is awesome. And as you're like working with these companies, realizing that you are able to tap into your strengths and your skills to turn them around, you're also getting that internal like fulfillment. I'm assuming that comes with that. And
Oh
not
yeah.
from an ego standpoint, but more from a purpose fulfillment.
100%, right? And that's when you really feel alive, and that's when you feel like you're living, right? Is that it's an energy and value exchange. It's like they're getting value from me, and I'm getting more than just the paycheck. I'm doing something I really like.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's a win.
How long after starting the consulting company did you write the book? Did it take to write the book?
Oh, so I only, I started the consulting business like 10 years ago. And and then I started writing the book like 2 years ago. And I always tell people that it took me like 2 years because it was in and out. And I don't know if you guys have written books, but it's like, your motivation, at least for me, goes in and out, and then you get writer's block and all this, right? And it took me like 2 years to do it. And I now look back on it, I was like, if I write another book, and like I could probably get it done in 6 months if I just like kind of kept my head down and actually got it done. So yeah, it took me 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I love it.
Oh no, we've both been there. And it's interesting. For me at least, I look at my calendar and I'm like, oh, I've got all of this time where I'm not on the road. I'm not traveling. I can definitely just like, hunker down and focus. Absolutely not.
You have to, I feel like you have to be inspired. Like I have to get to a space where I'm like, oh, I'm inspired to write. Otherwise it's a task.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.
Reignite Resilience family, we are so excited to share with you that the book, The Quiet Gift, A Journey of Self-Worth and Resilience, is now available on audiobook at Amazon. Make sure that you check the link in the show notes so that you can click on that and download a copy of the audiobook. This is an amazing story written by Pam as a part of the Red Journal series and narrated by Kristen Aiken Salata. So we hope you enjoy. Until next time, we'll see you soon.